Okay, evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I know Ann's not going to be here. I'm not sure about the other missing persons. We'll see.
Well, we have the quorum, that's what's important.
Yeah, there's nothing to vote on tonight, so it's just not that critical. But I'll start with roll call. To my left.
Maureen Piccioni.
Pete Sampu?
Bill Monroe.
Hannah Lawrence, Sandy Neck Assistant Park Manager.
Donna Bragg.
Tom O'Neill. And
Bill Carey. Bill Carey.
thanks. Also, just in case anybody is videoing or taping the meeting, if they can make themselves known to the chair, I'd appreciate it. It's been just about 10 years now, and nobody has ever come forward, so. Okay, we'll act on the minutes from February 13th. Anybody have any comments about the minutes from last month? Seeing none, could someone make a motion to approve the
Motion to accept
minutes?
the minutes as printed?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed, thank you. Anybody in the public have anything they want to say before we get going? Okay, thanks. Correspondence, please?
No, sir.
Okay, that's easy. All right, staff report. There must be a staff report.
We do have staff, yes.
Yes. That's going to be a video staff report?
No, just the.
I'm good, yeah. Thank you.
All right. So currently the gatehouse is open. We're open daily from 9 a.m. to 3:30. As a reminder, the ORV hours are 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and no campfires are allowed. The ORV permits aren't in quite yet. We're anticipating soon, but not there at this time. We are underway with the seasonal hiring and interviewing process, and we have some new merchandise that has been ordered. Okay. So the DPW has started on Marsh Trail repairs, so just for cottage owners, guests, and hikers should be aware of the large trucks and equipment that are on the trails.
Pretty, huh?
Before you go past that one, that is between Trail 1 and 2, right?
It is, yes.
Is that still passable?
It's passable. It's definitely a little bit rough, but, advise folks to go slow through that area, but you can get through.
Because
Vehicle or by foot?
by vehicle.
Yeah, by vehicle.
You can get to the halfway house, Pete.
And then upcoming, we have the Spring Beach Cleanup with MBBA. That's going to be on April 15th, and that's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Everyone is invited to attend, and we will provide trash bags and gloves for folks interested in picking up trash on the beach.
Okay. Yeah, I would encourage the board as well as the public to attend the trash cleanup. It's kind of a fun day and worthwhile. Actually, thankfully, Sandy Neck is not victim to as much trash as you might see in other beaches because there's really not much industry on the bay, so it's actually fairly clean, but there's still quite a bit out there when you spend a day out there scouring the dunes. So anybody who could come out and help, we would appreciate it. Just under old business real quick, before we get to stuff on the agenda, I did communicate with the town as well as the town council about the vacancy on the board. Basically, I asked for permission to fill it if they don't have somebody nominated immediately. I fairly quickly got a response back saying that they had now filled the vacancy on the RecCom, so that they anticipated having a member appointed to the Sandy Neck board shortly, and that was at least 2 weeks ago, so I'm still waiting. But at least they filled the board, the rec committee board, but as of yet, I do not have a nominee, so we'll live in eternal hope. So in terms of the other strategic areas, I actually spent some time this week reading back through the 2003, I think it was, Sandy Neck kind of paper that was actually done by the Woods Hole Group, who's still doing the work with us now on the resiliency project. kind of just looking at the, the transition of Sandy Neck from the old kind of board ran the facility to the new operation model, which is to have a staff and to operate it differently. And as the role of the board changed, it really does align almost perfectly with what we've got here as our three strategic areas. So I'm happy that, we're sort of in the right track, at least in terms of the things that we're focusing our minds on. As it says in there explicitly, as I've said many times, although we do get involved in short-term stuff like fees occasionally, the board's role is really strategic. It's not operational. So primary job is to really look out in the future, figure out what's happening, what could affect Sandy Neck, what opportunities are out there for Sandy Neck, and then, maybe for us to kind of bring those opportunities forward, to vet them, to discuss them, and then advise the council and the town manager. So I think, in that respect, I felt pretty comfortable that the work we're doing as a board is pretty well aligned with that outline in that paper. With that, let's just go through those three areas, and then we're also going to talk about the project. But under conservation and beach, I'm almost hesitant to say this given the storm that's coming, where I anticipate some. I was just looking at the maritime report because I follow that kind of stuff. They're talking 17+ foot waves in Cape Cod Bay, so this could be a corker of a storm, and it's going to be at least a couple days of pretty bad wind, and it's going to start out from the east and then wind around from the northeast to the northwest. So it's going to be, last I looked, the gusts are going to be up at least in the 50+ range, maybe higher. So who knows what the beach will look like after that. But Pete, do you have anything that you wanted to talk about with respect to?
Not really. I just foresee that things are progressing as we were hoping.
Yep.
So one quick thing about the storm. What's our tide cycle right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look at
Moon
that
or full
actually,
moon?
but
I don't think we are.
No, it's
We're in
at
the
quarter.
9-foot tide
Yeah.
range,
Good,
which
that's
is
helpful.
good. But that all being said, Hannah went out yesterday to do the, to close up the beach. She couldn't get past Trail 2, and it was a half hour, right, after high tide, and it was only a 9-foot tide. So
We're gonna get
again,
some erosion.
with the lowering of the beach, the width of the beach being shorter, we're anticipating we're going to, be taking down the closure line tomorrow, probably closing the beach because the tide's coming in, and then we'll be immediately, checking that frontal dune to make sure we still have one,
Thank you.
yeah, this could be a fairly damaging storm.
Were they able to predict the storm surge part of it? How high the tide
Well,
might be?
yeah, I mean, one number I saw was in the over 10 feet, kind of thing in certain areas. But it's always going to be one of those
10
things
feet's okay.
where it shows up. It's sort of very hard to predict. But
If the wind is in the right direction, I mean, an 8-foot tide can inundate that marsh if the wind's
Exactly.
right.
exactly,
It's all really
Yeah.
dependent on the wind.
it's just luck, really. But the wind's going to be out of the east to start with, so it'll be pretty strong out of the east at first, and then building quite a bit from there. So, under economic sustainability, I don't have anything. Bill, you have anything under public outreach or use of the beach?
I don't think I have anything fresh. We do have one scout. He's been in the pipeline for a while to his project. And we want to get with Pete and Rich, and the local scouts are really interested in continuing to help and not only in the service projects, but at the halfway house as well, so.
Well, please encourage them because that's I really enjoy those projects. They're fun to see young kids doing stuff like that in this crazy world we're living in.
Can I, Bill, bring forth a real need? Cleaning the mouse.
Yeah,
Feces and everything out of there.
I thought that the troop would probably get over there and,
So I'm planning on being out there the first or second weekend of April. It's right after, with students, for that Saturday night.
All right, well, before you guys, when you guys are making plans for this, we have a pretty full slate with the Cape Cod Art group coming in this year.
This early already?
Yeah, so just kind of drop me an email or
Okay, I
give us
will.
a call, either myself or Hannah, And that way we'll make sure that it's available, for you guys to be out there.
Because right now, it really is too dirty to rent out,
Right,
to
okay.
lease out to the art place.
Okay.
There's I've been catching, I'm up at about 20 mice. No, really, and,
To the raccoons, yeah.
yeah, and then I haven't talked to the raccoons out of calling it their home. But the mice have left a couple years of their existence in there, and it is really not, and I'm hoping either the scouts or my students go out there and put a couple hours, many hands make the work light, with just some good cleaning, sponges and maybe a little bit of scrub brushes and a bunch of hot water that we can now make on the stove out there.
Yeah, the other consideration there is to make sure that everyone is wearing at least face masks and gloves, because, that stuff's got stuff in it you don't want to be breathing in, so.
Is there some way to prevent, I mean, you've killed 20 mice. How do you keep the mice from coming back? Or the other critters? Everybody, as soon as you clean them out now,
No,
what's going to happen?
they'll come feeling, so I'm just planning, as soon as I start using this on a semi-regular basis with my students, like every month or every 2 months, is I'm just setting traps. I'm just
Yeah.
setting, and I got 15 traps out there right now.
Well, what does work, because we've had problems with our sprinklers pits, where the automation stuff is for the sprinklers, and they eat the wires. I went in one the other day, there was 10 of them in this little space about the size of this. But what does work is, I forgot to put it in that one, but in the other ones, there were no mice. There's the Irish Spring soap.
Oh.
Just cut it up and put it around the perimeter. And also, they have these little, I forget what they're, mouse balls or something. They're little balls that have some stuff inside that are, it's peppermint, I think.
Okay.
And they don't like that.
Oil does actually really,
Yeah.
really work.
So if we were to
If they're
clean with peppermint soap,
Possibly, or just put some of this Irish Spring around. Just keep it, just throw chunks in there, and they don't come in with the Irish Spring.
Dr. Bronner's, yeah. That's okay, good, I'll pick up some of that.
We took the peppermint oil and put it with alcohol in those little glass jars with the sticks, because then it keeps, you know what I mean, putting
Right.
it out. And we have crawl space at our house, and we have not had any mice now for almost 9 months, and we caught mice like on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So I'm just
And
saying,
They don't like peppermint.
definitely works. All the camping stores sell the little peppermint, like he says. Mice don't like peppermint. It like burns their lungs. Like they just go up. So,
And the
but
places
you gotta
we-
be able to keep it.
Places we had the peppermint and the Irish Spring, no
Yes.
mice.
Yeah, and the other thing is, once you get it clean, you get into a cycle of using the building
Yes.
and not letting food scraps be in there. I mean, the mice and the raccoons, they love a cave that doesn't get used for years,
Yes.
which is basically what that building has been. So once we get back into a cycle
Right.
of getting it clean, keeping it clean and using it, it becomes less and less of a problem. Pete and Rich have put some hardware cloth around the outside and places to discourage the raccoons. And again, I think just the more being around there and making noise and so forth
Yeah. That'll help. Yeah.
tends to reduce their desire to be there.
Yep. Good.
Tips.
Okay, let me just do a quick update on the project, the resiliency project. The team had a meeting about a week ago, a Zoom call. And the purpose of the call was to discuss basically 2 new options that, between, I guess, the town's input and the public input, that the team came up with as ideas, neither of which really affect the parking lot. The parking lot needs to move, and we're probably going to find that out even more than we want to maybe this week. So there's really nothing. I think the feedback from the public generally was very positive about the parking lot. I think everybody understands it's got to happen. So putting that aside for a second, the other parts of the project were more optional. And so the 2 new ideas that are being discussed right now are, and there's potentially, I haven't heard for sure, but I think we have a next public meeting. Do you know if that's been scheduled now? For
So
sure?
it's slated for early April. They are currently working on trying to get the harbor view room
Right.
again. And the plan is to be an in-person meeting with either like a recording or a Zoom option available
Right.
for those who can't make it.
I think tentatively it's April 5th. And I haven't heard confirmation, but I was asked to clear my calendar for April 5th, so I think that's probably the date. So the differences in this new plan are really two. In one case, move the parking lot, don't move the off-road trail. The other case, parking lot, move the off-road trail. So that's fairly similar. Most of the feedback, the critical feedback that came out of the meetings was really around the off-road trail for a number of reasons. Moving it to the top of the hill, for safety reasons, having too many vehicles trying to access a similar kind of nexus at the top of the hill, lighting issues. There were a number of things that came up. So it's either parking lot, move the off-road, parking lot, don't move it. The other piece was the gatehouse. And I think Nina and her team have thought through this more carefully, and there's an option potentially to move the gatehouse, but to move it, just if you know where the path crosses the road as you're walking up to the, kind of just past that, there's kind of a knoll there on the left, which we think is potentially not a problem wetlands-wise. And that could be a good spot to put it. Would also be proximate to the off-road trail, or pretty close to it, if the off-road trail stays where it is. And it would also be, both of these options would be a lot less expensive than the sort of move the gatehouse to the top of the hill or build a new gatehouse, move the off-road trail, which is, they're expensive pieces of the project. So I think part of it is that you don't want to lose the main, well, this is my opinion now, you don't want to lose the main reason we're doing this, which is the parking lot and protecting that for some of these more peripheral opportunities. Now, obviously, you want to take advantage of opportunities if they present, but so I think those are the two options that are likely to be presented at the public meeting, unless something changes. From obviously, there's work to be done there. They have to do the work around the potential new gatehouse site. I don't know if they've started to doing that yet, just to see if that's feasible. And basically, I think what they would do is just pick up the existing gatehouse, move it up, put it back down again, which again would be less expensive. So, there'd be a few other little tweaks and stuff that have to be done with parking. There'd be some opportunities potentially to put some more air up and air down space down where the existing gatehouse area is now. So there's a few other things that could come from that also would help with relieving the stress, which really is there for only a handful of weekends, on the off-road trail in terms of airing up particularly. So that's the latest. So we'll have the public meeting on the 5th. I don't have a calendar that goes beyond that, so I don't know exactly what the project's schedule is past that date, but I assume at some point, I know the town is pretty involved because obviously Dan Santos is head of DPW. He's been at the public meetings. I know he's very involved because Amber's Unruh is working on the project in his behalf. And I've been told that Mark has been updated, so that's great. I don't think there's been any formal update of the town council. We don't have anybody here tonight, so I can't ask them. But I don't believe that town council has had any formal meetings on this, but I could be wrong. So that's another piece of this that has to be managed. So that's the latest. Yeah, Bill.
So what would be the cost savings, do you think? Did they...
I took a rough look at it. I thought it might be like $500,000. It's significant if you don't move, because the off-road trail, if you move the parking lot back like this, okay, and then you've got to put another probably 30 feet, by the time you have two vehicles passing and air.
30 feet.
And that's starting to really push into that hillside.
Mm.
And we've had several discussions about what's going to have to, what are you going to have to do to make that viable? You're going to have to bolster it or do something. But it also starts pushing into the wetlands. So you're sort of giving back wetlands here and you're taking them away here. Does that really make a lot of sense in a sense to, disturb what's already working and create new problems? So I'd have to look at it, but my last look at it, I thought it was somewhere at least around $500,000. I mean, it's significant. It's real money. It might be more than that, I'm not sure, but.
I would think that would be reason enough, the savings. I would think that if you kept on the existing trail where it is, you'd still have to build up opposite ends, over by the gatehouse where during the flood tides,
Yep.
they can sneak in.
Yeah, thank you. I just remember
on the beach.
Right, so part of the other sort of side benefit of this approach would be take some of the money and spend it to build a kind of a retention wall down in that, a berm down in that area by the gatehouse so that that area could be more protected. I'm not sure if it's ever totally protected, but it would be more protected from, from, so there's just, it's still a bit in development, but just in terms of big picture, that's the, yeah, Pete.
So these are essentially inputs, insights, recommendations, whatever you want to call it, in addition to the 3 that we chose?
No, these will be the 2. There's no longer an option for revetment or for moving the lot
okay.
back halfway. The
Okay.
lot's going back.
Okay, so good. But in the balance of things, is the, was it 5F or 4F? That was,
Yeah.
well, that one where everything is moved up there, just so that we have something that we've invested some understanding into, and then some of this possible cost saving. Are we still keeping the third option that we put forth as move everything up on top, and that's still being
Not the
discussed?
gatehouse.
Okay,
Because the way they originally designed it was they had the gatehouse sitting in the middle of the sort of parking lot on the left side as you go up the hill, which is kind of nuts.
okay.
So, I mean, I think that was just more that the designers just put it there because they weren't sure,
Or
where
also
put
to
it. But-
have, and again, Donna might speak to this more, but essentially that's where everything's happening. So if you've got actually staff up there doing gatehouse stuff, they're still very much in communication and right there with the parking lot and concession stand and the off-road vehicle. So it was a consolidation of personnel in the area of maximum interaction.
Right. But I think one of the other benefits to this plan, if they don't move the off-road, is they don't have to knock the garage off
Right.
the gatehouse, which is another kind of shame to do and expensive. So I'm going to leave the operational side of this to Nina and her team. I think Nina has convinced me that moving the gatehouse to where we were discussing now, this new kind of option, gives her what she needs to manage.
Okay.
Um,
So
or-
as long as that these decisions are not from necessarily outside the community, they're coming
No.
from.
Oh, no.
They're-
Good, they're coming from the people who are using this.
The whole team has
Yes.
sat
Cool,
down.
thank you. I don't
pros
need to
and
hear
cons.
more than that. I
There
just
you
wanna
go.
This
know
is
that
this is the
coming
operating team
from
that's.
those who know.
Those who do it,
Exactly.
absolutely.
No,
Thank
this
you.
Have to vote again, like on,
We should.
That's a good question. I mean, the main reason we voted on the parking lot was because I wanted to put a nail in that for good, just that we're 100%. I don't know if we should vote on these other 2 options because we haven't presented enough detail. I think we
Exactly,
may
not
at some
enough
point,
detail
Bill,
yet.
but probably not right now.
Oh, yeah, no.
All you're doing
Yeah.
is refining what you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
What's the elevation that you're talking about of moving the gatehouse?
It's not,
It's not that, it is the highest knoll, but this is,
Yeah.
this was a brainstorming kind of thing, honestly, Bill, where
Yeah.
we just said, hey, what if we didn't move it up in the parking lot? Where can we move it? And we physically took a walk and said, wow, that looks really good. So that was presented, I believe, to Amber, and they're going to get some elevation things, and like Pete was saying, refinement right now, and Bill, refinement. So we came up with an alternative just because we know the workings of it. So where it would be placed, we'd also be able to still look at our garage, be able to turn traffic around. It's kind of like almost in the middle there. So we've put some thought into it, and we're kind of all agreed. It was like, yes, this could work. So as they get the things that you're going to need, how much is it going to cost? What's the elevation stuff? I
Yeah,
guess
we can
that's
do
what
that.
Nina's going to present. Yeah.
right. And it's, yeah, go ahead, Bill.
And no new permits will be required?
Always a new
Always
permit.
permits.
Yeah, sure. If we're
Well,
going to
you-
move the gatehouse, we're going to need a permit. You betcha. Because we're going to have to
I was thinking
disturb.
more the conservation-related
Oh, yeah.
ones
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
endangered
Yeah.
species
Yeah.
and,
There were, called before this, there were like, I don't remember how many regulator people on the call. CZM, Heritage, Concom, who am I leaving out? another 4 or 5 probably. So they're well embedded in this project. I mean, frankly, there was very little feedback when they were presented with a lot of the information, which I'm not sure is good or bad, but you know, yeah, there's a lot of permitting required. Keep in mind, we're only at 30% design level right now. So these 2 options, assuming, you know, that the town want to go forward with those 2 options, they will be taken to 60% design. So we're still, a lot of details, you know, still to be figured out in this thing. It's still fairly early, but they want to get the permitting going, and that you need to be kind of at a certain level of completion to, you know, to know exactly what you're going to permit.
To make the move of the gatehouse, do you think we would have to give up any of the parking up above?
No.
In order to use that?
No, the gatehouse wouldn't be going anywhere near the parking. It'd be down where that path crosses.
Yeah, but now you're moving it into virgin land.
Dune, virgin dune.
So the problem is, are you going to have to sacrifice to satisfy these boards some parking spaces in
No,
order
sir.
to use that new space for the
No.
gatehouse?
No.
No.
You don't think so? No trade-offs,
No, I don't,
no mitigation?
have you heard of any trade, no, we've not heard of any
Okay.
mitigation on that. The way they're designing it, if it's put up on the knoll, it actually splits the road where people will be coming off the beach, the parking lot, and coming down on one side of the gatehouse, and people will be going up on the other side. So it actually, it kind of fell into our lap by looking at it, and it actually is a kind of a logical thing, because it does still position us where we can see the marsh trail, the garage, and you know, the important, where the infrastructure is right now, where the gatehouse is. So that's where we're at, and we'll just see how the permitting goes on that.
That's a good spot. You can see everything.
Yeah, but without being like, you know,
Right.
400 feet in the air or
Right.
anything, so, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good, potentially a good solution. It was the team's idea, so that was, you know,
Even better.
that's important, yeah, since they have to operate it.
Cool.
So that's kind of where we are. I don't have any other meetings scheduled other than the public meeting, which I think will be the 5th, but I'm not sure, so stay tuned it'll obviously be well posted, and encourage everybody to come. We had pretty good turnout. I think I said this, about 100 people between the 2 other meetings. So pretty good turnout, and pretty diverse turnout. It was people from the neighborhood, people from all parts of town and different constituencies. So it was good. Good. I think they were good meetings, and Amber did a really nice job presenting the meetings. So okay. So any other comments on the project? Okay. So we're going to finally have a few minutes to talk about board effectiveness. So this is just you know, something I believe in, because for my business life, I've tried to do with various committees that I've chaired or whatever, is sometimes it's good to take a time out. We've been operating for, I don't know, years, you know, more or less on the same kind of schedule, the same sort of agenda. We've changed it a little bit, but I really just wanted to have an opportunity to talk to everybody about mainly around the agenda and how we run the meetings. Are there things we could do to make it more interesting, more effective in doing the job we have? We've talked in the past about, you know, public speakers, which I think is a great idea, and we kind of got off that because of COVID. But, you know, and we can do that, and obviously I need you guys to participate in that, because although we talked about having Mark here a couple times a year, which I still think is a good idea, you know, there are lots of other folks out there, bright people who know a lot about conservation, about beaches, about marshes, about wildlife, et cetera, that we could, you know, schedule in and have them kind of speak to us, give them a half an hour and let them educate us a bit about what's going on. But I would need, you know, you guys to help out with that so that we could bring those people to the board, you know, some of those. I know Ann has already suggested a couple in the past, but we never got there because of COVID. So that's really, I did get one idea from Don already, which is a good one we can talk about, but so really just open discussion really to talk about that, and I guess particularly maybe focused around the agenda, and you know, is there anything we could do? We added the public comment, for example, a couple of years ago at the beginning. Theory there was that if you have a sticky conversation coming up for the meeting, you know, let's say like fees, it's just felt to me that it was more useful to open it up to the public ahead of that discussion rather than have a discussion, agree on something, and then open it up to the public. 'Cause so so we kind of added that to give the public an opportunity to comment. Now, realistically, other than a few folks that are here pretty much regularly, we don't have a lot of public attendance. So maybe that's not as critical. And one of the ideas Donna had is we could change that a little bit to make it more of any thoughts I have that I need to get in your heads before the meeting starts, just use it as kind of an open slot for the chair, basically. So I think that's a good idea. But what do you guys think? I mean, what are you thinking? And, it's open for comments, so don't hold back.
I'd perhaps like an update on invasive species control out there at the neck. I know Nina, for her master's work, was involved with that. I think it's still continuing. I'm not aware of how much, but that, we have very valuable habitat, and invasive species control is an ongoing project. It's not something that ever goes away, so an update on that would be nice.
Yeah, one of the meetings that we have yearly.
Yeah.
Where we run down all the statistics and
Yep.
everything. Maybe
But-
you want her to
and
go more in depth
yes,
on that.
yes, some
Because she gives you
education.
how many acres are done
Right,
and
no.
that kind of thing, but
But
then you
ha-
want the
Yeah,
education.
the
Okay.
education.
It raises a good question because Nina's job obviously has grown. I mean, is she able to keep?
Delegating that.
I have this vision of, this stuff just kind of comes at you over time and eventually it's too much. But I mean, is she able to
She's
spend
on
it?
it. Oh, no,
Yeah,
that's her
okay.
favorite
I know it's her thing, but
It is. Yeah, she's very on top of
Yeah.
that, definitely. And plus mosquito control helps us by,
you're failing in that one, let me tell you.
yeah, well, no, it's not us. But mosquito control really does go out and they identify areas while they're out doing the mosquito control
Oh,
of
okay.
where you're seeing some of the species come in. But Nina's very much on top of that, and it would be great for her to educate a little bit more on what species, not just, one or two. We have several that she's battling. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill, sorry.
You just raised a question in my mind. So mosquito control, are they ditching or are they spraying out there to control the mosquitoes?
They will open up a ditch if the
They'll
ditches.
maintain the ditches?
They maintain the
Oh, okay.
ditches, yep.
Okay.
And then it's not a spray. It's like a
Oil?
granular thing, discs and stuff that they put out there.
It's a what?
It's a disc.
Oh,
It's like these little
think I know
discs,
what that
yeah,
is.
and it has mosquito, the larva killing stuff in it.
yeah.
And then they've come around the gatehouse and they have a bucket, because right where the marsh comes up, we get the daytime mosquito attacks.
Yeah.
And they'll just take the granules and put that in there. It doesn't harm wildlife, it doesn't harm anything, but it does kill the mosquito larva. And when they find a really big, concentration of it, they're right on top of it. But, the marsh has
Interesting.
changed, so when the marsh changes, we have new areas that crop up.
And that's another possible for bring in somebody from mosquito control and give us a rundown on exactly what they do.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was actually, I attended it by Zoom. I know you were there for that presentation on the marshes, which was fascinating. And it was a woman there, I think, that spoke about the mosquito. It might have been from, was she from Barnstable? or-
Gabby.
Yeah, she was very good. I mean, it's an area that, all I know is, but but what's actually going on? I mean, I know last year it was vicious. It was bad. Yeah, that'd be another, how frequently if we're going to have people come in, because it is, you do have to, the ideal situation, in my experience with this kind of stuff, is you try to schedule out as far as you can. So you rather than sort of hit somebody and say, hey, next month, can you come? Try to sort of put a plan together for the year and say, hey, we're going to do this 6 times a year, and then figure out who those people should be and then get them lined up ahead of time. So like, especially with Mark, but even other people that are experts and stuff that, say, look, can you come in June or can you come in? Does that make sense to try to do that?
You want to look at, you guys already have a yearly calendar that
Right.
in November, we're going to talk about fees or
Yes, sir.
whatever, and there are bigger things that are already plugged in. So-
Right.
So move these in around the bigger
Right.
things, as far as the statistic reports and the fees discussion and the regulation.
Which all of you have
discussions.
been sent that if you need me to send it again, the yearly, what our yearly calendar is, I'll be happy to do that.
My guess is we don't have much more than 4 lighter meetings a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So we definitely don't have 6.
Go for one a quarter. Go for one guest speaker a quarter.
So 1 a quarter would probably mean 2 marks and maybe 2 other people, then you're saying, for the year, maybe, something like that?
Yeah, something like that, or
One
one mark.
I mean,
Or
it's
1
been-
mark, yeah.
We've never had more than 1 mark. I know that's your goal, but,
Yeah,
realistically,
might
it
have had
seems like
one
we
year
get
where we
them
had
in
him
once a
twice.
year.
Yeah. He's pretty open to doing it. I know, but he's very busy, so it's,
I think we want to keep as close to Mark as possible, especially with everything that's going on. So twice a year.
If we
for-
can.
For
yeah.
Mark.
I think we can make that work. I mean, we did, I think, of 1 year where we had him twice, and then it just, COVID, just wiped everything out schedule-wise, so.
I think the idea of science, bringing in things to educate us is really a great idea. And I would do it on an as-needed basis. I mean, if it interests you, then why not just try and schedule somebody to come in and talk to us about it? Yeah, last month I was kind of hinting that we should be focusing on a mission statement and seeing how we're meeting up with our mission statement, which is conservation, certainly. The Sandy Neck Colony Association would be part of it, recreation is all part of it, and education, and I would put research in there. And there used to be a lot of research going on out of Sandy Neck. You had Peter Auger and Eric Strauss, who were the people studying plovers and turtles and
Deer,
the deer, exactly. There were
coyotes, we had coyote study
coyotes.
out there.
There was a lot of real research going on. And I think anything that we can do to promote that, because it seems like it's lagging. And with all the things going on now, I mean, this is stuff we're talking about that was happening 20 or 30 years ago. Now there's so many other interests, to do with climate change. I would think that if we had an ability to reach out to some of these universities and made our location available to them for studies on climate change, I would think they would jump all over that. I would think that would be of incredible interest. And thinking about it, a long time ago, it was set up, and I don't know if it exists any longer, at Sturgis Library. There's supposed to be a section of that library that's allocated just to Sandy Neck history and science and geology.
Do you know
I
that?
don't know if it still if it exists or if anybody's paying any attention to it.
Make a list of the Sandy Neck archives.
Could you come up?
Yeah, can you come
Rich,
up to
could
the-
you come
just
up
come up to
and
the table,
then
Rich.
state your name, please?
Maybe you should use this one.
Mine here.
That's a difficult.
About that, Rich French. Yes, years ago, we started something with the archival of all of the things that, what was her name, that kept all the books. And Wendy is now the historian.
Moquin.
Yeah.
Lucille Moquin.
Yes, and Sturgis, the Barnstable Historic and Sturgis Library took her books for archival in the Sturgis Library. Now, I can't tell you, they had about half of it done, and then things got in the way. So I can't tell you if, in fact, that is still ongoing. But I know Lucille Moquin had tons of stuff that basically outlined everything that happened at Sandy Neck. And I do believe that next year, the Barnstable Historical Society is going to take and have as their main exhibit everything to do with Sandy Neck. So,
That's cool. You want to, I mean, you're at Sturgis, right, Pete?
different Sturgis.
Christmas Sturgis.
So that's Sturgis Library, and I'm at Sturgis Charter School.
Oh, right, okay, I'm sorry. You're talking about, which Sturgis Library, I'm sorry.
That's right on Route 6A in
Oh, yeah,
the
okay,
village,
okay,
just
okay, right.
outside the
Right,
village.
got it.
But supposedly all the science that's
I've been to a
going
library in
on
about 100 years. but-
be out there. So I think if you went there, and maybe you would know, that you'd be able to look up Eric Strauss or Peter Auger and get all their studies. So there's supposed to be a repository someplace.
I'll check it out.
That should be, I think, at Sturgis Library.
Yeah, it should be.
I'll check it
I
out.
believe. That's my recollection of what the purpose of doing all
Yes.
that was. And I know Ann Kennedy was involved, too, in putting together some of that
Yeah, probably.
information.
What, I mean, it's interesting, research, did we had anybody come in and ask to do, I mean, I know it's a little bit tricky because the Sandy Neck Beach covers, you know, part of what's out there, but the whole marsh is not technically under the management of the Sandy Neck Beach organization. And so there could be research groups in the marsh that you might not even know about, I suppose, right? I mean,
Oh,
if
no,
they're- Or would DNR know? or
No,
something?
we do get folks that come in and do research. We have a group that comes out and collects heritage seeds, very important, from the different planting out there. Of course, pre-COVID, we had more things that were happening, and then it kind of fell by the wayside. We had a group that would come out and study the cranberry bogs that are on Sandy Neck. So I think maybe that's what you're talking about, is maybe we need to give you guys more information on what actually is going on besides the day-to-day, you know, that kind of thing, because we do have quite a few research groups that have come out in the past, right?
Yeah, and upcoming we have, it's a group that's doing validation of the right whale surveys, so that's coming up in April. So we do have some other various things happening.
Well, let's, yeah, I'm going to summarize this, but I mean, let's get that linkage hooked up with us, because I think that would provide a
So
good
it's supposed to
source.
be set up that they would get a permit from you guys, from the Sandy Neck, and then they were supposed to put together, and you'll have to help me with terminology, a brief, so to speak, of, you know, what the study was to be, and that was part of the permit. And then after the study is done, then they would give us a summary, and they would do a presentation, was the understanding. And that has
I think
has not
sometimes a
happened.
presentation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
depending on the scope
Right.
of the research.
They give us
Yeah.
the scope of what they're doing. Nina goes over it, and Hannah will be going over it and say, you know, this is, yes, it's very, you know, pertinent to Sandy Neck. And they give us, you know, sometimes it's pages and pages. And then they get their educational permit, their scientific research permit, and they go out and do their thing. Oftentimes, even with the cranberry bogs, it's over a period of years. So they're like logging changes in the bogs based on the amount of water that's influxing, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it would be great if we would get more of these. And when the ticks came out, when they found the Lone Star, we had quite a few scientists down there studying that. You know, why are they here and all that stuff, and how can we get rid of them? So there is more that's going on. We'll try to be better at
Yeah,
presenting.
maybe
that,
just
too.
put a calendar, I mean, because they do have to go through a permit, so there's a little bit of lead time, so maybe if you
Yeah.
guys could just think of that and put a calendar together, every quarter or whatever you know, out as far as you know, and then just let us know that so we can,
So I guess my question is, how do we utilize the research asset that we have at Sandy Neck? Did the people just come to us? Do they find us? Or is there something we can do to reach out? And I'm not a scientist, so I don't know even who to talk to, whether it be, you know, BU or Woods Hole Group or whoever. How do we reach out to these groups? You know, maybe there's a particular university that's really leading edge when it comes to climate change. And how do we reach out to them and say, gee, you know, we have a facility here. We'd love to have you come and do your research and, you know, come and talk to us about it. So
I don't
I'm,
know how they choose, I mean, I suppose I'm not sure how they choose where they do the research, but I suspect there's some science behind why they choose certain places, but yeah, Pete.
And Rich, you might be able to help me. You've got better history out there. But both Pete Auger was a high school teacher here. So proximity and being in the town, that's why he did work out there with the students. Then Eric Strauss, I think, was one of his students who ended up then becoming a professor at BU.
Yeah,
Or is it
I think-
BC? BU? And so then I think even, so Eric Strauss is up at BU, and then Pete Auger retired, and then he had an affiliation as well with Boston University, again through Eric Strauss. Eric Strauss had lived in West Barnstable for a number of years up on High Street, and it was proximity to Sandy Neck, associated with, it's almost an ancient high school halfway house connection that produced an awful lot of interest within the scientific community. It wasn't people coming from Amherst. It wasn't people coming from necessarily Woods Hole, although there is some ancient involvement of Woods Hole scientists with this great salt marsh. But it really was the proximity and Pete Auger and Eric Strauss. That was where most of that research came from. Knowing the facilities there, knowing the resources, you write grants and you get funded. It's hard to do research if it's for free.
Maureen?
Tom, you started off by saying that the role of the board is more like a strategic focus as opposed to operational.
Right.
And then you mentioned the 3 categories and stuff. So I think making sure that we try and have like our guest speakers be pertaining to those categories.
Right.
So you mentioned Mark Ellis, that would be like the economic sustainability focus of it. You guys were talking like conservation, perhaps on that and stuff. And then the other is public outreach.
Right.
And so how do we, strategically, probably like that would be more my, close to my heart, public outreach and access for everyone and stuff. And so, figuring out how we can do that also as strategically as possible and having a guest speaker for that. And then the other question that I've been wanting to ask for a long time, we have so much rich information that is shared at this meeting, and a lot of times we assume that the public is listening. It's almost used as like a
We hope they are.
right, a public service announcement, a PSA for Sandy Neck, but honestly, I don't think there is. I don't know that for a fact, and it seems like there's a lot of time and effort put into those, that information, and it just, it lands on us, and then it doesn't go elsewhere. And I don't know if that has ever been addressed, or if, again, maybe that's not our role, because it's maybe more operational than strategic, but I have wanted to ask about it.
Yeah, sure. I think because I've been there a long time, and I've seen a lot of public outreach. We have Channel 18 that comes out. They just did a great thing on our turtles.
Yeah.
But it also was very educational for the public. We have a lot of walks that are open to the public, and they're well attended, and people learn so many things, just by actually coming out and meeting with Hannah and going off on some of these walks, or Josh or Nina. I think, that Channel 18 is a really rich source for us, because they love coming out when we're doing something fairly exciting. We get these with the Junior Rangers program. We get them vested in really early with the Terrapin program. We get them in, and it is surprising to me that still, for all these people who lived here all their lives, I meet people every year that have never even been to Sandy Neck. So it's one of those things that you just keep putting it out there. And if you look at Channel 18, if you're in the middle of the night and you can't sleep, go ahead and watch it. You'll see Nina from when she was 12. Yeah, and they do. But it's all educational stuff. So, but anything that you guys can think of, Hannah is really good with education. I'm going to give her like brava right there, because she's all about that stuff. And any kind of thing, we do stuff with the Adult Community Center, and they learn so much. We did the hands-on stuff with them. They got to touch whale bones and do all that. So anything that you can think of, you'd be surprised at, I guess, how much Sandy Neck does. Look at the website, look at the walks that are given, not only through Sandy Neck, but also Audubon comes out and does a lot of stuff. Who else does?
Barnstable Land Trust works with
Barnstable Land
us.
Trust, yep. Yeah, so, but you're right, there's a lot, we're so rich. We'd like to share that wealth,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I think, it's a good idea. I think there may be people out there too who have other beaches, other facilities that have, done some different things or new things with their facilities that we could potentially, do some research on and bring them in and talk to us about some of the things they're doing at X Beach someplace, or X Park someplace that maybe we could do or could be done in a different way, but something similar. But you're right. I mean, we should not lose. I mean, Bill has been kind of leading that group, and frankly, there's been a fair amount of discussion on public outreach over most of the meetings between the Scouts and working on the halfway house and other facilities out there. But it's an area we need to keep focusing on. It's a key element of that strategy that's laid out in that plan in 2003. So it's also, I think even like the Mass Beach Buggy Group, they're a big user out there. Maybe it'd be worthwhile having someone from that organization come in and tell us about, how they perceive Sandy Neck and what things they could be done to improve. So, yeah, there's got to be, that's why I said earlier, I'm going to need to rely on you guys to come up with these ideas. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is probably optimistically, if we kind of shoot for 5 meetings a year where we bring someone from the outside, which would be maybe marked twice and then maybe up to 3 if we have the right ideas, not just force it, but if there's someone out there, maybe up to 3 other times, but at least 2, let's say, where we bring someone in from the outside for education. I think it's always good I've been on other boards and stuff, and, even in business boards, you bring people in that are experts in areas to improve kind of break you out of the way you think every day. You're kind of focused sometimes like this, and then sometimes you just need somebody to present something differently or from a different perspective, which is, really what diversity is all about. It's different ideas, mixing them together. So this board's been together for a long time. We've had, other than Maureen joining us more recently, the rest of us have been around for a while. So it'd be good to bring in some of that outside new ideas and stuff like that. So if you guys are willing to attempt to make that, I'll write this up and just as a general proposal for the board, but then I'm going to need you guys to come up with ideas on people that we could bring in. I mean, I can handle Mark. I'll make sure he's scheduled. We said this in the past that we try to schedule him kind of spring and pre-budget, maybe October or whatever, during the year. So I'm pretty hopeful he'd be able to do that. But I'm going to need the rest of you guys. I know Ann's got lots of contacts, but I know you all do too in your own various areas of expertise. So if you guys are committed to do that, then we'll try to do it. You guys,
I think, thinking about other beaches, or the ideas that they have that they could share with us. And you think of, National Seashore. I mean, that's huge, right? Federal government. I sometimes wonder, what they're doing over there and whether there are things that we could copy from them. There's also little known or little recognized as the Wacoit Bay National Estuarine, whatever it's called.
I've worked with them in the past.
Have you? And they have all kinds of things. They have a neat little, it's small, but they have an interpretive center there, with very touchy-feely, with sandboxes with turtles or shells or whatever. That's kind of fun for little kids. They also, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have weekly in the summer on the bluff a music event. They'd have a band go out there, and they would fill up that whole field with cars, and people would, go to that, and that would draw in a lot of people. So there are different things you can do.
I know where you can get a band.
Yeah, we've got the band. We've got the band leader here.
It's going to be up at his house.
Tom, is there a list of things that, I apologize, is there a list of things that have to go before the board?
Good question. No, that I'm aware of. You mean, when you say go before the board, you mean be voted on?
Like, for instance, like the fees or, the fee schedule or
Well, I think
whatever,
generally,
right?
The schedule that she has.
yeah.
Yeah, I sent that out, and I will send it, just to refresh you, I'll send it out to you tomorrow, to everybody, and it's every year, it's basically the same months that we do the fee hearings. Every other year, we do fees, and then this year is regulations, but it's always at the same time, so I'll send that out.
There's a safety presentation that's
Safety
done.
presentation, right.
Yeah.
We don't
couple
really
others.
vote on the safety.
Well, let me just answer Maureen's. I think where it becomes critical to vote is when we're recommending something to the town council or to the town manager. So whatever that is. Some cases it's programmed like fees or regulations. Other cases it's like the project where we need to take a position on something where we're going to go to the board, go to the town council and town manager, say, this is what we believe, this is what we recommend. Then we need to vote on that mainly to commit. The reason you're voting is so you publicly are saying, I'm for this, right? Or not, depending on. So that can be kind of ad hoc, depending on the situation, Maureen. We probably will have at least one, maybe two more votes on this project before we're done.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That explanation's great.
Pete, did you?
Yeah, so to put on the list of entities, Massachusetts Beach Bug Association has been a long-standing partner at Sandy Neck. And I think it would be wonderful for them to get credit and provide some education as to what are their main interests. Now, maybe I'm old school, but a lot of that used to be for fishing from the shore. That is a cool educational thing to teach people about, even if they're not fishermen yet, but the access of those miles to shore fishing, both daytime or nighttime, is a pretty cool educational thing that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, I go out to the colony usually every year for the meeting out there, and that's, but I'm the only one that gets that feedback, Nina and I, or wherever I go out with. But it might be worth bringing someone in from
Yes,
the colony,
yes.
too, to kind of give us that perspective, because that's probably one of the areas that, other than you guys who live there, or not live there, but have homes there,
Yeah, but
I'm probably not as well
NBBA
educated.
has been really a long time with us,
Yeah.
so.
So I think it's kind of I don't think it has to be perfect. I think it's just get people in that can broaden the way we think about things, give us new information, educate us.
And the public.
And the public, yeah, hopefully, to Maureen's point, there's somebody out there watching.
Well, and one of the things to Bill's point, and Donna mentioned, research, and you're talking about other beach managers. That stuff is ongoing, and I'm pretty sure that you guys have a dialogue, whether it's formal or informal, with other beach managers.
And Nina's part of the beach
And-
managers group,
Right,
so.
so, just a couple of those notes, if they could be included in the staff report, this month we're working on this research project, or we touch base with this beach manager, that would go along. It's work that's already being done. And, we're not saying that it's not being done, but
So we just need to brag on everything
yeah,
that's
we
going
just
on.
we just aren't in the loop as far as knowing
Yeah.
that these things, and we need to tout our own horns a lot of times.
Sure.
So, those things that are just kind of routine ways of doing business, just share those with us and the public so that they get the bigger picture.
And sometimes that triggers thoughts and. Okay, well, I was intended to make sure we were done by 8 o'clock tonight, which we're right on, so, Bill.
One last thing, pet peeve. Can
Here.
we have a profit and loss statement that's a complete profit and loss, that showing revenues, all the different categories of revenues, we have that, but then showing the expenses.
They have
So
a
it's
budget.
So it's a real profit and loss.
Yeah.
And that it be done on a calendar year basis. Because it's meaningless having it June 31st. It's meaningless.
That's a huge headache, I would think.
I thought that when the town went to the stickers and everything,
Not in the
January 1st, that
computer
they changed their
age.
budgets.
It's
but I
very
don't think
simple. Somebody just has to put in the dates, just like you going in to look at your bank statements. You just put in the
You
dates.
can rearrange it
And
quickly.
you print it out.
I'll ask
And-
people who do that.
Sustainable or operational?
Well,
economic.
that would be under economic
Yeah,
sustainability.
and there's rules and regulations from town and budgets and
Yeah.
all of that. So, I mean, you have to fall under, you can't just go creating, Excel spreadsheets, that aren't part of the actual cash flow and all that. So I think there's a legal question to trying to do that kind of stuff.
This very well may be a Nina question.
It's all
Yeah.
there. We have the
mean,
information.
Right.
Okay,
It's
so I'm not a
just-
scientist, but I do know about P&L, so.
Yeah, if you want to manipulate it though, to calendar year, I think would be challenging to stay within town rules and
Yeah, I mean,
regulations and
it's-
the law.
They're gonna be producing reports every month, so it's just a matter of putting in the dates that you want to do it, and then it would need to be comparative. So
Well,
you
yeah,
want
otherwise-
to do 2023 to 2022 to compare to,
I mean, you could gin something up that, but you wouldn't have a balance sheet, you wouldn't have your capital on it, it would be difficult. I don't know how they the other problem is I don't know how they allocate costs in the town. If they're doing bonds and stuff, how does that get allocated? So it's complicated. You could do something that's just a kind of a surrogate P&L potentially. I mean, what they have now is a budget. So every year the budget goes up 2.5%, and every year they spend it. Whatever that's the way it works, right? So, and then you got to have the fees to cover it because it's an enterprise account. So, you could, but it's not driven to create a profit. So it's a difficult thing to construct in a town, I think, because that's not their mindset. It just isn't.
we have a town accountant, that's what he does.
Yeah, but he's not oriented to to that sort of P&L format. It's a different kind of
And he's not
economic
our accountant.
framework than what you would get in a business. I mean, think about how you could do it. I mean, there is a lot of information out there. The other thing I don't want to do is burden the team with, a lot of number crunching to come up with something that we're going to look at and go.
We made money this year. We
Made
lost
money,
money
yeah.
this year.
I mean,
We are an enterprise account.
Yeah.
So we should know that we're operating,
well, they
I
do
agree.
in a sense,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I
Right.
believe that comes out in the budget.
Yeah.
I believe that is
Yeah.
where that is when
but a
everything is.
budget is different.
No, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's all part of that also. You need to, my suggestion would be to present your questions, like email Nina and say, this is what we're looking for, because she's been doing this.
Well, look, we could get Nina in here or Mark or what's,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
And
what's
then she can tell you where to find it.
one of the guys on this
Or what you're
staff.
looking for, because I know we have a profit and loss statement. I know we do. It's just that, she's the one that kind of is in charge of all that good stuff.
So it might be, maybe,
so that's
who's the
part
finance
of-
guy in Barnstable? Mark Millen?
Yeah.
So maybe we get him in sometime instead of Mark Ells to talk about
Yeah,
how
we
the
could-
financial
we could do
wizardry
that.
works.
I think it's probably fairly simple. It probably.
It
Keep in
could
mind that
be.
we're an advisory
Not that
board too,
difficult.
and we
Yeah.
really can't dictate the way that the town and the staff does things.
No, I think what Bill's saying is more to understand it, but I think the P&L, so to speak, look, you'd never run a business with budgets, right? It's the most ridiculous way to run a business is using a budget. So you always have to have a P&L, which is different than a budget. So whether you could construct some kind of a surrogate budget, a P&L in a town like this is a good question. I don't know. I don't know if there'd be enough information to make it useful, how difficult it would be to get the information. So, and then what we would do with it once we had it. So those are things we have to kind of answer, But if you want to think more about that, how we do it, I think the budgets are all accessible right online. So
Yeah.
you could take a look at that and see what you think, what could be done with it to come up with some sort of a surrogate P&L. Whatever extra money they make just goes into a reserve.
Waiting for the
It's
storm
not-
to hit next week.
Yeah,
Wait for the sand, baby.
it's not like they're going to go out and buy a business with it or, hire more sales
And-
reps, or it's a little different animal. So I was on the board of a nonprofit for a number of years. It's even more frustrating because it's, the concept of profit and a nonprofit. I have to keep reminding them it's a tax designation, not an objective to be nonprofit, So, but there you go. Well, look, there's some really good ideas. I think, let me just try to summarize some of what we talked about, and I'll send it to you, okay? Because that way you'll have to do it. So you can put it in the minutes, and then we'll just have a quick catch-up on it next meeting and start to really put it in motion. Is there anything else in terms of the agenda that you're uncomfortable with or think we should change, or? So forever hold your peace. Okay. Well, if you have any ideas, let me know, but
Make a motion to adjourn.
it's past
I'll
Pete's,
second
it's
it.
past Pete's bedtime, so.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, wait a minute,
Aye.
wait.
Oops. I'm sorry, public
Public
comment.
comment.
Public
I'm
comment.
Sorry.
You jumped the gun.
You got to come up here. Sorry, Rich.
Oh, okay. But the meeting's adjourned, so I'm fine.
Not yet, no, we want to get your comment first. So it's on the record.
Yeah, you know, we're talking about thinking outside the box, and these meetings are all held in this conference room. The public, you know, most of the time you look in the parking lot, it's either full with people or there's nobody here like tonight. What would be the objective, and I look at it legally, of holding a meeting out at Sandy Neck? All right? I mean, you have Wi-Fi, you have all of this stuff that meets the public criteria. Have a public meeting there to show something different. Showcase us during the nice year, the nice season, if you will.
I asked about that once a while ago, and I was told there's all kinds of problems with filming it and, recording it and stuff.
They have
but-
thumb drives. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, everything is now hooked up out there. I would think that you'd be able to take and, up at the bathhouse,
Yeah, do a summer meeting or something, just do it
have
outside.
something to say, hey, we're going to have our next meeting. Please all come.
Bathhouse.
And it's something different, all right? That's all. That's my comment.
Good idea, and thank you. I have no idea what's involved in doing that legally. I think as long as it's posted, it doesn't matter where it is. But I think,
It'd be wheelchair
Logistically.
accessible.
yeah, I mean, it's got to be all that stuff. But, yeah, it's worth looking into. That's it's a good idea.
Well, the other, as far as getting out and being out there and doing stuff, I mean, whenever we're doing projects, the board members are always welcome to come and participate in that. Pete and I and Rich broke a bunch of thumbs building that lean-to with your brother a number of years ago, and those are the kinds of things which really allow us as a board to outreach and show the community that we're involved. We're actually getting out there and and not getting in the way of the staff, but doing certain projects that are near and dear to us as individuals. Pete and Rich are doing a lot at the halfway house and all those things. So, to each exercise their own passion and do it out there outside of the board meetings is really, it's kind of our next step,
Especially cleanups coming in
Yeah,
April
and
15th.
one of my mentors in the scouting nonprofit world basically said, the work is not done at the meetings, it's done in between the meetings, and you report at the meetings on the work that you did, so.
True. Well, let's, some good food for thought, some good ideas. So let's chew on it you have a month. That should give everybody plenty of time to think about it a little more, and then we'll spend a little bit of time in the next agenda just trying to refine it a bit, okay? So, Pete,
A motion to adjourn.
all in favor? Aye. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.